The king had ordered the great hall dressed for triumph, yet to Jaime it smelled like a sept prepared for a funeral. Silken banners drooped from the rafters, red and black and gold. Torches guttered along the walls, their smoke trapped high beneath the barrel vaulting, so that the air above the court lay under a pall of hazed gray. Beneath, the nobles of the realm gathered in restless knots, their jewels winking in the half-light, murmurs running through them like the whisper of wind in tall grass. Somewhere, a girl laughed too loudly and cut herself off, sudden and guilty, as if laughter might be counted treason. Jaime stood to the right of the Iron Throne, white cloak falling straight from his shoulders, white armor polished to a shine that showed ghostly reflections of the hall. His hand rested on the pommel of his sword, just so, as Ser Barristan had drilled into him, still as marble, watchful as a hawk. The king's guard did not shuffle or crane their necks to see who entered the hall. They knew already, they had been told. They had been told that the lion was coming to be muzzled. On the throne, Aerys II Targaryen slouched like a man 3 days dead and propped back up for one last feast. His beard had grown long and wild of late, like gray spiderwebs clinging to his jaw. His nails were thick and yellow, his hair a tangle beneath the heavy, three-headed crown. His eyes were live coals. They moved ceaselessly over the gathering court, catching on every movement, every guarded glance. Ser Barristan Selmy stood on the king's left, white as bone, his face carved in stone. On Aerys' right, in his black and scarlet, Prince Rhaegar seemed carved too, though of some finer marble veined with sorrow. He kept his gaze low, as if he had no wish to see what was coming. "You are pale, Ser Jonathan Dayne murmured beside Jaime, a faint, mirthless smile playing on his lips. "Is the air in the hall so chill?" Jaime knew he was pale. He could feel the blood gone from his face. "The torches are hot enough," he answered, watching the great doors. Beyond them, beyond the yards and walls and stink of the city, the lion had already entered the Red Keep. Jaime had seen his father ride up through the mud gate, gold and crimson banners streaming against the sky. 1,000 men in mail and plate behind him, all bright with Lannister colors. They had not been permitted inside. Only the Lord of Casterly Rock and a handful of chosen retainers had been allowed to dismount in the inner ward, turn their swords over to the gold cloaks, and walk up alone. Jaime had not been allowed to go out and meet him. "You are sworn," Ser Barristan had said. "We guard the king. The rest must be set aside." Set aside, as if a father could be put away like an extra cloak. The great doors boomed once, twice, as the guards swung them inward. The murmurs faltered and fell. Jaime felt his jaw tighten. Lord Tywin Lannister entered the hall without haste, as if the king waited upon him rather than the other way around. He wore no armor, only that austere, severe finery he favored, a doublet of black and crimson, a golden lion's head clasp at his shoulder, the hilt of his sword bare of jewels. His hair, once golden as Jaime's own, had faded to pale straw. There was little of it. He had never bothered to hide that. His face was lean, his green eyes cold and level. They found Jaime at once. He had not thought his father would look to him. "Foolish boy," he told himself. "Of course he will. You stand in white, and every man here knows what it means." But the look, when it came, was brief, like the swift pass of a blade in water. No smile, no nod, only recognition, and a faint narrowing of the eyes, as if weighing him. Then Lord Tywin's gaze slid past, to the Iron Throne, and the king seated upon it. The whispers began again, low and sharp. "He came," Jaime heard, incredulous, from somewhere to his left. "Gods, he truly came. What choice had he?" Answered another. "Refuse a royal summons? Refuse the summons when half the court mutters that he should wear the crown himself?" Hissed a third. "He should never have left the rock. Kings grow bold when lions leave their den." "Silence!" roared a herald. The king stirred. "Let him stand alone," Aerys said, his voice carrying through the hall, thin and dry. I will see his true shape without the armor of his men. Lord Tywin stopped halfway down the carpet and bowed, very slightly. Not low enough to kneel. Never that. Your Grace, he said, you commanded my presence. I commanded, and behold, you obeyed. The king smiled. His teeth were stained. Did the journey go pleasantly, Lord Tywin? No bandits on the road? No delays? I rode swiftly, Tywin said. You wrote that the realm was in peril and that you required your hand. Hand? Aerys laughed, a sound like glass breaking. No, not hand. You are not my hand, lion. Not any longer. Do you think I have forgotten how you crept back to your den without a by your leave? Do you think I have forgotten your insult when you dangled your girl before my son, as if dangling meat before a dog? A flicker crossed Rhaegar's face, some shadow of disgust or pain. Jaime could not tell which. His own throat felt dry. His father's back remained perfectly straight. You dismissed me from your service, your grace, Tywin said. It is within a king's right to choose his own counsel. Ah, but counsel grows teeth when it is not watched, Aerys said. He leaned forward, fingers digging into the metal of the throne. And claws. Tell me, Lord Tywin, did you build the king's debts for my sake, or for your own? Did you place every lord in your pocket, so that you might rattle the realm like a purse when it pleased you? My house lent where lending was wise, Tywin said. Gold has always bound the 7 kingdoms more tightly than any ch. I'm more tightly, Aerys' smile sharpened. So tightly that perhaps it might squeeze the life from a king who would not dance to a lion's tune. His eyes flashed. Do you deny that you spoke with Lord Went at Harrenhal of changes to the succession? That you whispered that the realm might do better with a younger, prettier king? A murmur rippled through the hall. Harrenhal. Jaime's mind leapt back to the noise and color of that tourney. The crowds, the tilts, the day when his father had watched him kneel and swear himself to the Kingsguard with no more expression than if he had been sealing a ledger. The day Prince Rhaegar had placed a crown of winter roses in the hands of a northern girl, and all the world had held its breath. I spoke of no treason, Tywin said. A lord may speak of succession. It is the talk of every hall where men grow old. Men, Aerys said. But are you a man, or something else? His gaze flicked to Rhaegar. They say you ruled in all but name for 20 years. They say the lords came to you before they came to their king. They say you kept a tighter hold on the realm than I ever did. He spat the words like poison. I served you, your grace, Tywin said, as hand should serve. You served yourself. Aerys rose, sudden as a storm. You fattened your cubs with my meat, stocked your rock with all the honor that should have come to my own. You thought I did not see when you named yourself protector of the realm, in all but words. You thought I did not know what men whispered, that the realm would be better for a lion on the Iron Throne, that the dragon had grown too mad to fly. He stepped forward, down from the throne's black iron steps, his crown askew, his robes swirling. Jaime, by long habit, shifted with him, every sense focused. The king's madness had grown teeth of late. It bit without warning. The traitors at Duskendale taught me, Aerys said. They taught me that treason grows in the dark when kings trust too deeply. I will not be taken in again by smiles and bows. His gaze bored into Tywin. Do you deny that you have thought of this throne? Do you deny that some nights, deep at your rock, you have imagined yourself seated here, my crown upon your head? The hall held its breath. Tywin's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. Jaime saw it because he had always watched that face for cracks. A man who says he has never thought of a crown is a liar or a fool, he said, calm as ever. But thoughts are not deeds. I have taken no step against you, your grace. Aerys' laugh rose, high and shrill. No step? You sent your boy into white to stand at my side, a hostage dressed up as a gift. You tightened your fingers on every purse in the realm. Did you think I would not see the trap closing? His voice pitched higher. Did you think the dragon would not burn the net before it fell? He spun, sudden, robes flaring. Rossart! From a shadowed arch to the side of the throne, A pale, slight man stepped forth in robes of dark green. The air around him seemed to shimmer with heat, though Jaime knew that was only in his mind. The Grand Master of the Guild of Alchemists moved with a careful, deliberate grace, like a spider descending a thread. "Your Grace," Rossart murmured. "Bring in the jars," Aerys said. It was as if a hand clutched Jaime's throat. He had heard the whispers, wildfire. The king spent hours with the pyromancers now, speaking of great fires under the city, of turning kings landing into a beacon the world would never forget. Yet he had not thought. The side doors opened, and 4 pyromancers in green cloaks entered, each bearing a small clay jar, sealed and stoppered. They moved in unison to the foot of the throne steps and set the jars down with eerie reverence. "Your Grace," Rhaegar said, at last lifting his head. "This is unnecessary." "Unnecessary?" Aerys rounded on him. "You would defend him? You, whose head he would have placed on your father's shoulders if it suited his books. You, whose wife sits in the red, keeps surrounded by his spies." "My wife sits surrounded by yours," Rhaegar said low. "She is the Princess of Dorne, and your grandchildren sleep beneath this roof." "Grandchildren," Aerys said. "Pretty little half-dragons with Dornish blood. Who knows what poison runs in their veins? Perhaps they too would join this lion's treason." His breath came fast. No, there can be no half measures. I will cut this rot cleanly, and then the realm will see. They will see that I am king, that I am fire and blood." He turned back to Tywin. His eyes glittered. "Kneel, lion." For a moment, silence. Jaime's heart hammered. He realized he had stopped breathing. Lord Tywin did not move. "You kneel," Aerys said, more softly. "You confess your crimes. I will be merciful. I may spare your cubs. I may leave you your rock, though stripped of titles, of honors. You will remember that your life is mine to give back." "My life has always been in your hands, your Grace," Tywin said. "I have never doubted it." "Then show it," Aerys whispered. "Kneel." The hall watched, thousands of eyes, every man and woman caught between one heartbeat and the next. Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, did not kneel. His voice, when it came, was quiet, but it carried. "I have served you faithfully for 20 years, and kept the peace you squandered. If that is treason, then we are all traitors who have not yet understood it." His gaze did not waver from the king's. "Do as you will, your Grace. I stand as I have always stood." Aerys stared at him, breathing quick, lips trembling. A red flush crept up his neck. "So be it," the king said. He flung out a hand. "Ser Gerald, Ser Barristan, seize this man." White cloaks swept down the steps, boots ringing on stone. Jaime did not move. His feet would not move. His fingers clenched on his sword. "Dehilt." Ser Gerald Hightower's hand brushed his arm as he passed, not gently. "A warning, do nothing." Ser Barristan took Tywin by one arm. Hightower took the other. The lion did not resist as they turned him to face the court. He stood straight between them, stripped of his sword, his cloak still falling in austere black lines. "Fire," Aerys whispered to Rossart, almost lovingly. "The lion takes too much space. Let us see how he shrinks when the fire licks his bones." "No," Rhaegar said. He stepped forward, one hand outstretched. "Father, at least grant him a trial before the lords. You cannot do this on hearsay. The realm. Aerys rounded on him. "You dare to speak to me of the realm? You who play songs and crown wolf girls when you should be at my side. Quiet, boy. You will watch and learn what it means to be a king." The jars had been unstoppered. Even across the hall, Jaime smelled it. A sharp, sweet stench, like rotting pine and madness. Rossart murmured incantations under his breath, fingertips brushing the clay as if coaxing something from sleep. "Bind him," Aerys said, "to the stake." There was no stake, but the pyromancers dragged forth a thick, cracked column of timber from behind a screen. Perhaps it had been used before. Jaime thought of Duskendale, of the charred hanging cage in the square where the king had been kept. His stomach lurched. "Your Grace," Barristan said, very low. Jaime saw his lips move, saw the desperate respect in his eyes. He could not hear the words, but he knew them. "Please, this is no justice. This is madness." "Silence," Aerys snapped. "You are sworn to protect the king, not his enemies. Tie him, quickly. I grow impatient." They bound Lord Tywin to the upright timber with heavy ropes, crossing his chest and arms, lashing his legs. He did not struggle. He did not look to his son again. Jaime's throat burned. "Move," he thought. "Say something. Step forward, you craven. That is your father." But Ser Gerald's warning hand still echoed, and behind his father's rigid shoulders loomed the Iron Throne and the king upon it. Jaime had sworn, with hand upon the seven-pointed star, before gods and men, to protect that man above all others. The words of the oath rang in his ears, a chain of promise. "Ready," Rossart breathed. Aerys smiled. "Light it." A torch dipped into a jar of wildfire, came out wreathed in green so bright it made the air around it waver. The pyromancer who held it swayed as if drunk, eyes half closed in ecstasy. He stepped toward the bound man. Tywin Lannister lifted his chin. Jaime saw his father's profile in that instant, sharp as a coin's edge, and behind it, the court, hundreds of faces, some avid, some horrified, some carefully blank. The world tilted. He could not breathe. "Father," Jaime whispered. No one heard. The torch touched the wood at Tywin's feet. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then green fire raced up the timber in a hungry rush. Too fast, too bright. It clung where flame should have bounced. It ran up the ropes like water, splashed against flesh and did not fall away. The sound that came then was not human. Jaime had heard men scream on the practice yard, heard wounded soldiers moan on beds of straw. This was something else. Wildfire burned not only flesh but voice. It swallowed sound and spat it back as a wail that seemed to crawl inside the skull. Tywin's body jerked against the ropes. For an instant, Jaime could not tell whether he strained to escape or only convulsed as the fire ate muscle and sinew. His face, the fire took it quickly. The lion's features melted and ran. The smell filled the hall, meat and madness and pine. Someone retched. Someone else fell to their knees, praying. Ser Barristan turned his head away, jaw clenched. Jaime did not look away. He forced himself to watch every heartbeat, every flickering instant as the man who had ruled him since birth blackened and crumbled. He watched until the ropes failed and what was left of his father's frame sagged, a ruin smoldering in green. The hall was silent but for crackle and hiss. At last, when even the bones glowed red beneath the green veil of flame, Aerys stirred. He seemed taller, somehow, as if he had fed upon what he had just done. "So falls treason," he said quietly, and his voice carried nonetheless. "Let every lord of the 7 kingdoms remember today. Let them remember that the dragon does not share power. Let them remember that there is one king, and one alone, and that no lion or stag or wolf will ever rule while I draw breath." He turned, climbed back up the steps, and seated himself once more upon the Iron Throne. Jaime's fingers had seized so tight upon his sword hilt that his knuckles ached. He realized now that the white leather of his glove was torn where his nails had bitten through. He could not feel his feet. He looked once more at the pyre that had been his father, a charred shape, still flickering with obscene green light. Smoke curled upward, bitter and sweet. The smell would never leave his nose. He knew it with sudden, cold clarity. He would carry it all his life like a second cloak. The king leaned sideways, almost lazily. "Ser Jaime," he called, "come forward." Jaime stepped forward because to do otherwise would be to fall where he stood. He walked down the steps, past the place where the fire still burned, until he stood below the throne, within arm's reach of Aerys. "Look," the king said softly. He grabbed Jaime's chin with bony fingers and wrenched his face toward the pyre. "See how quickly great men turn to ash." His breath stank of rot and smoke. Remember this, boy. You are mine. Your vows are to me. Your blood is nothing." Jaime said nothing. His voice, if he tried to use it, would shatter. "You will stand here as my sword and shield," Aerys said. "You will guard me from lions and from all other beasts. Do you swear it?" Jaime heard his own voice, hollow. "I am sworn, your grace." "Good," the king said. His nails dug into Jaime's skin. "Because the game has changed. The realm thinks itself a board with the lion gone from one side. They will move their little pieces now. They will scuttle and whisper, but I am the fire that burns the board." His eyes gleamed. "Watch them, sire. Watch them all. And when I say strike, you will strike, even if it is your own blood. Do you understand?" Jaime's throat closed. Somewhere, beneath the crackle of wildfire, he thought he heard the groan of stone, the creak of something vast beginning to crack. "Yes, your grace," he said. When he stepped back to his place beside Ser Jonathan, the other knight's eyes flicked to the smear of soot on Jaime's white cloak where cinders had brushed him. "The realm will not forget this," Ser Jonathan muttered, too low for the king to hear. Jaime looked once more at the smoldering ruin. In his mind, the image of his father's face before the fire rose again, cold and immovable. For the first time in his life, he realized that there would be no voice in his ear now, telling him what to do, whom to honor, whom to fear. The realm will not forget, he thought, but memory alone would not save them. Far away, in a castle of red stone carved into a roaring lion, a raven beat its wings against the sky. Cersei was in the high gallery of Casterly Rock when the raven came, watching the sun bleed itself into the western sea. The windows there were narrow and cunningly cut, so that the red gold light poured in and painted the walls, the floor, her own hands. It made the veins on the backs of her fingers look like cracks in polished stone. She liked it here at dusk. From this vantage, the world seemed simple. Sea and sky, light and shadow. The rock itself never changed. Storms battered it. Waves broke at its feet, but it stood. So will we, she thought. When the soft rap at the gallery door came, she did not turn at once. "Enter," she said. Uncle Kevin stepped in, his face weary, the rolled parchment in his hand sealed with the royal dragon. Behind him, like a shadow, crept Maester Crelin, fingers twitching at the links of his chain. Cersei's heart clenched. Seals from King's Landing came often enough, bearing tiresome commands, petty quarrels, demands for gold. Yet Kevin's expression told her this was no common summons. "How bad is it?" she asked when he said nothing. "The worst," Kevin said. His mouth worked once, as if unused to shaping the words. "It is from the king, and from Jaime." Her breath caught. "Jaime?" She spun, snatched for the parchment like a starving dog for meat. Kevin did not let it go at once. "Cersei," he said gently. "Best you sit." "I will stand," she snapped. "I am not a child to be sent to my stool at every sharp word." Her fingers tightened on the parchment. "Is it about our betrothal to Prince Rhaegar? Has the king come to his senses?" Kevin looked at her the way one might look at a wounded horse. "No." She broke the seal with her thumb and unrolled the parchment. The script was the king's hand, feverish and angular. It began with titles, as always, half a page of them. Aerys, second of his name, king of the Undulls and the Rhoynar and the First Men, lord of the Seven Kingdoms, protector of the realm. Once, those words had thrilled her. She had seen herself as queen beside Rhaegar, those titles hers by marriage. Now they looked like a wall of icy water. She skimmed past the florid self-praise to the lines below. "By the king's justice and in defense of the realm, it pleased us this day to remove from his station our former hand, Tywin of House Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock." Her eyes skipped, as if they refused to read the rest. She forced them back. "For crimes of high treason, of conspiracy against the crown, of secret plotting with Lord's discontent to place himself or some other upon our throne. In token of our mercy, we offered that he confess and seek absolution, but he refused, defying us in the sight of the court. Thus, we judged that his life was forfeit, and by royal command he has met the fate deserved by all traitors." Her vision tunneled, the words blurred. She saw again the hall at Casterly Rock, the night Jaime had ridden south to take the White Cloak. Father standing at the head of the table, unyielding as ever, saying, "You will go. It is the highest honor a man can have, to stand at the king's side, and a great honor reflects upon the house that provides it." And Jaime, laughing, careless, "I thought the highest honor was to be heir to Casterly Rock. The rock will not lack for heirs," Tywin had replied, eyes flicking briefly to Cersei's belly as if a daughter were just another line in a ledger. "Do not be a fool, boy." They had not embraced. That was not his way. His nod as Jaime rode away had been small, but Cersei had seen pride in it. Pride in his son, in the golden lion taking its place in the heart of the realm. Now the realm had devoured him. She felt the parchment crumpling beneath her fingers. She forced them to unclench so she could read on. "Let all lords of the Westerlands take heed that their allegiance is to their lawful king, and not to any man who would usurp his place. We command that hostages of good faith be sent to King's Landing forthwith, that all may see their loyalty. Let the elder son of Lord Tywin, if he have any, come at once to our court to answer for the sins of his house. Let his brothers and nephews accompany him as tokens of fealty. Let the Lady Cersei Lannister, being of comely years, likewise attend upon us as lady-in-waiting to the queen, that our grace toward the house be known." The parchment slipped from her numb hands. It struck the floor with a small papery hiss. "Dead," she said. The word sounded foreign in her mouth. "He is dead." Kevin nodded once. His throat bobbed. "Jaime's letter confirms it. It gives more detail than the king's." She saw, absurdly, a cherry on a silver plate, split open, flesh-scorched, juice running black. She had watched her father squash a cherry once, annoyed by its stain on his fingers. That was how the world should work. He was not crushed. "How?" she demanded. Her voice shook, and she despised it. "How did he die? In battle? Some coward's crossbow?" Kevin hesitated. It was enough. "Tell me," she snapped. "In the Red Keep," Kevin said heavily. "In the throne room. The king called him before the court, accused him of treason. There was no trial. The pyromancers," he swallowed. "They burned him, Cersei, with wildfire, before the eyes of half the realm." For a heartbeat, she saw it as if she had been there. Her father, tall and unmoving, the king's mad eyes, the unnatural green of alchemical flame. The smoke twisting up like some obscene banner. She began to laugh. It poured out of her in a bubbling rush, sharp and ugly, until it hurt her ribs. Maester Craylan made a small, shocked sound. Kevin grabbed her shoulders. "Cersei!" She slapped his hands away. The laughter broke, torn in half. Something hot pricked behind her eyes. He would have hated that," she gasped. "Dirty, ugly, no ashes to bury. No stone, no stone." Her knees threatened to buckle. The rock's floor rose toward her, veined red stone yawning. Kevin caught her this time and forced her into a chair. "Breathe," he commanded. "Come, girl, breathe." She drew a ragged breath. Another. The world steadied bit by bit. "Jaime?" she whispered. The word was a prayer. "What of Jaime? Did the king?" "Jaime lives," Kevin said quickly. "He writes that he was ordered to watch, that he could not prevent. He lives. He is still sworn to the Kingsguard. The king holds him close, Cersei. Closer than ever. A hostage." She did not need Kevin's cautious words to hear it. The king had burned the father and kept the son, chained in white. The rock's walls pressed close around her. For the first time in her life, they felt like the bars of a cage. "And what does the king command?" she asked. The composure in her voice surprised her. Aside from hostages and ladies in waiting, Kevin stooped to pick up the letter. "He names Lord Humphrey Swift as Warden of the West in your father's place, until such time as the crown decides the question of succession. He commands that all bannermen swear to the crown directly. He implies that the Lannisters hold their lands only at his pleasure. For a moment, she could not speak. House Swyft was an old vassal. I, but a weak one, bent nearly double beneath the weight of gratitude. Lord Humphrey had wept when Tywin had once praised him for doing nothing more than his duty. The thought of that toad-clawed man raised up as warden in her father's stead made Balburn the back of her throat. "He means to strip us," she said, "to break our house as he broke our father." "Yes," Kevin said. There was no comfort in his voice. "If he can." A spark flared in her chest. Not grief, fury. Her father had been a hard man, unforgiving, demanding. He had never once, in all her life, taken her in his arms. Yet he had been the rock itself, unshakable, immovable, the center around which their world spun. If he fell, the world should have cracked open. And it had, only not in the way the king expected. "He cannot," she said. "The West is not some petty marcher lordship to be taken up and set down at his whim. The rock has stood since the first men. It will stand after dragons are bones in the ground." Kevin's mouth twitched. "Words like that will be called treason, if spoken where ravens can hear them. Then I will whisper them in dark corners," she said, "and shout them in my heart." She rose to her feet, shoving back the chair. "Call the bannermen, uncle. Send for every lord who owes us fealty. They must know." "They know already," Kevin said quietly. "The ravens fly faster than ours. Some will come without summons. Others," he grimaced, "others will wait to see which way the world tilts." "Then we will tilt it," Cersei said. She walked to the window, leaned her forehead against the cool stone. Far below, waves shattered themselves on the cliffs. The roar sounded like distant applause. "War?" Kevin asked. "Is that what you counsel, niece? Against the crown? With Jaime in the king's grasp?" The question hung between them like a sword. "Father would never have knelt," Cersei said. "He died standing. Do you mean to crawl where he stood?" "I mean to keep our house from being thrown into the sea," Kevin said, a rare heat in his tone. "War is not a knife we can sheathe once drawn. The king will have the reach. He may have Dorne. Some in the Crownlands, the Stormlands." "The Stormlands," she said sharply. "Robert Baratheon will not raise his banners for Aerys. He despises him." "Robert is bound to the Starks," Kevin said. "To Lord Rickard. They have little love for your father after the insult at Harrenhal. But insult is not cause enough for rebellion. Few will follow a lord who rises only for pride." Pride, the word stung. Pride had been everything in this house. Pride and power. Her father had taught her that they were the same. "He has burned one of the great lords of the realm without trial," she said. "He has set a toad in his seat. He demands hostages like some Sellsword captain. How much insult does it take for proud men to act, uncle?" Kevin looked older than his years. "More than you think," he said. "Men count their lives, their lands, their children. Many will say, 'What is Tywin Lannister to me?' Let the dragon and the lion tear at one another while I keep my head down." "Cowards," she spat. "Sue. Revivers," Kevin corrected. "And we must be the same, for Jaime's sake if nothing else." He hesitated. "The king's letter demands that his elder son come to court. He knows there is none. It is a thin pretext he will use later to strip us if we refuse. So we send no one," Cersei said. "We send polite letters and gold, as we always have. We send excuses. The Westerlands are restless. We must keep order. The passes are snowed under. Time, uncle. That is what you always preached at father's councils. Time is gold. Time can be bought, for a while," Kevin conceded. "But the king's wrath grows as swiftly as his madness. There may not be much of it. Then we will use what we have," she said. "Call the lords. We will see who stays, who creeps away to King's Landing to lick the dragon's hand, and who stands with the rock." Kevin bowed his head. "As you say, my lady," He left. Maester Crelin lingered, wringing his hands. "My lady, if I might." "You might leave," Cersei said. When he did not move, she turned those green eyes upon him, bright and cold. "Unless you have some potion that can unburn a man." He flinched as if struck. "No," he whispered. "Not even the gods can do that." "Then what use are you?" she said, and swept past him, skirts whispering. Later, alone in her chamber, Cersei took out the blue rose that had been pressed between the pages of her book for a year now. It had crumbled to dust, nothing of its color left. She rubbed the remains between her fingers and let them fall to the table. "Rhaegar," she whispered. Once the name had been a dream, a ladder out of the west and onto a throne of iron and glory. Now it tasted like ash. He had stood there, in the great hall at Harrenhal, his harp at his shoulder, silver hair shining in torchlight, eyes distant. He had seen her, surely. How could he not have? She had been the queen in all but name already, gold and green and flawless. Yet when the moment came, he had passed her by and set his garland in the hands of a wolf maid with leaves in her hair. She remembered her father's face then. Not rage, not even surprise, only a tightening, a calculation shifting behind his eyes. He had gone back to King's Landing and resigned the hand's chain within the year. And now he was gone. Fine. If the prince would not take her, if the dragon spat on the lion, she would find another way. The realm was not carved in stone. Men could fall, kings could burn. Stannis Baratheon was unwed. She knew. So were others. But it was Robert whose name lingered in her thoughts. Loud, handsome, heedless Robert, with his laughing blue eyes and his great warhammer. He was a storm, as changeable as any weather, but he hated Aerys as any man of sense must. He had hated, she thought, seeing his father's lord burned in King's Landing years ago when the king took offense at some imagined slight. He would hate this too, a union of lion and stag, of rock and storm's end. It had a pleasing sound. She smiled, a thin, razor-edged thing. Let the dragon play with wildfire, she thought. Let him burn his own halls. The rock would wait. The world might crack, but when the dust settled, something new would rise from the ruins. Far away, across drowned fields and riverlands, in a tower that had once seen better days, a man in black and scarlet turned a page and tried to pretend the world had not shifted beneath his feet. Rhaegar Targaryen traced the line of the prophecy with an ink-stained finger. The letters were Valyrian, the hand antique, the parchment cracked and flaking. He knew the words almost by heart, yet he read them again. When the cold winds rise and the stars bleed, the world shall tremble. Then shall be born the prince that was promised, amid smoke and salt, with the song of ice and fire in his blood. He closed his eyes. Smoke and salt, fire and frost. The world trembled, but not from the icy threat he had always sensed at its edges. It trembled because men were mad and proud and afraid, because his father wore crowns of flames in his dreams and spoke to pyromancers as if to brothers, because the great lords of the realm watched and waited and weighed their chances. Because Tywin Lannister had burned, and with him had gone a certain kind of order. "Your Grace," came a soft voice from the doorway. He looked up to see Ser Arthur Dayne, the sword of the morning, framed in the arch light from the narrow window beyond caught the pale stone of dawn at his hip. "You did not come to the hall today," Arthur said. It was not a question. Rhaegar's mouth tightened. "I had no wish to see what I could not prevent." "You might have tried," Arthur said gently. "To what end?" Rhaegar snapped, more sharply than he intended. Immediately, he regretted it. Of all men, Arthur deserved better than his temper. "Forgive me, you know my father. Any plea from me would have only made him more determined. He would have taken my protest as yet further proof that Tywin served me and not him." "And did he?" Rhaegar sat back, looking at his friend. "You think I conspired with the lion to unseat my father?" "I think you speak too often of what the realm needs," Arthur said, "and not enough of what your father is." "What he is a danger," Rhaegar said low. "You saw it today. He burns one of the most powerful men in the realm without trial, in front of half the court. Do you think the other half will sleep easy? They will wonder when the fire turns on them. They have wondered for years, Arthur said, yet none have moved. Perhaps none had cause enough, Rhaegar murmured. Perhaps. This is the push. Toward what? Arthur's gaze was steady. Toward your father's removal? Toward your own ascension? Rhaegar looked back to the parchment on the table, to the curling script that had haunted his dreams since he was a boy. I was not born to be a usurper. Some would say you were born to be a king, Arthur said. Your father was not always as he is now, but he will not become what he was again. We both know that. Each day he slips further. Today he burns the hand. Tomorrow who? The Lord of Winterfell? The Lord of Storm's End? You may not wish to be a usurper, but the realm may wish it for you. And if I take power by force, with dragons long dead and wildfire our only flame, what then? Rhaegar shook his head. A king who seizes the throne from his father invites every ambitious man to dream the same. The realm will fracture, storm against rock, north against south. We will not be 7 kingdoms in name only then, Arthur. We will be 7 kings and more. Better 7 kings than no realm at all, Arthur said quietly. Rhaegar looked back at the prophecy. Smoke and salt, ice and fire. His mind, as it often did, drifted to Harrenhal. To the moment he had ridden past the woman everyone expected, the golden lioness whose father had counted their crowns before they were minted, and had placed the garland instead in the hands of a girl from the north who had laughed in the face of princes and world with a wooden sword in her hand. Lyanna Stark. He had not meant to crown her, not at first. It had been impulse, a sudden clarity, as if some unseen cord in the air had been plucked. Her eyes, gray and fierce, the stubborn lift of her chin, the wild smell of her hair. She did not look at him with calculation or awe, but as if he were a man and not a prince, as if she saw his doubts, his fears, and did not look away. Smoke and salt, ice and fire. He pushed the thought aside. This day was heavy enough without adding forbidden truths to the pile. Aerys will not forgive me if I move, he said. He will call it treason, as he called Tywin's council treason. And half the realm, at least, will agree. They are tired of madness, but they are more tired of war. Then he will destroy the realm for you, Arthur said, piece by piece. You have seen the caches they lay beneath the city. You have heard him speak of turning kings landing into a pyre. Do you think he will keep such fire leashed forever? No, Rhaegar whispered. He thought of his children asleep in their beds, the small, solemn boy with Elia's dark eyes, the tiny girl with curls like spun silver. He thought of Elia herself, fragile as glass, keeping them close as if her thin arms could shield them from dragonfire. Then the question is not whether there will be war, Arthur said, only what kind, and who calls its banners. Rhaegar stared at the parchment until the letters blurred. He thought of Tywin's burned body collapsing into itself, of Cersei's hungry green eyes at Harrenhal, of Robert Baratheon's booming laugh, of Ned Stark's quiet reserve. He thought of Jon Arryn, old and faithful in the Vale, of the Martells far in the south, of the Tyrell boy in the Reach, pliable, ambitious Mace, whose mother's hand guided more than his own. 7 kingdoms, 7 fires waiting for a spark. What would you have me do? He asked Arthur. Gather your own council, Arthur said. Lords you trust, men who have seen what your father has become. Speak to them honestly. Tell them what is coming if nothing is done. Let them decide whether they will stand with you when the time comes. And if they will not, then you will at least know how alone you are, Arthur said. There is value in that. Rhaegar sighed. Outside, gulls cried over Dragonstone's black cliffs. The sea beat itself to foam below, as relentless as time. All my life, he said, I have waited for the moment the prophecy turns, for the sign that the prince has come, that my purpose is clear. I thought perhaps it would come in some great comet, or some monstrous birth, or a dragon rising from fire. Instead, It comes in the shape of my father's madness and the smell of burning men. Prophecy cares little for glory, Arthur said, only for truth. Perhaps this is the way of it. Perhaps your song of ice and fire begins not with dragons, but with kings burning their own hands and lions sharpening their claws. Rhaegar's lips twisted in something like a smile. You are too fond of riddles, Arthur. And you of songs, Arthur said. Between us, perhaps we can find sense. Rhaegar returned his gaze to the parchment one last time, then folded it carefully and set it aside. Send out discreet feelers, he said at last. To Lord Arryn in the Vale, to Lord Stark in the north, to Lord Baratheon at Storm's End, to Lord Tully at Riverrun. Men who owe their positions to my grandsire's conquests and to my father's peace. Men who will see the danger for what it is. Tell them that the prince would speak with them of the future. Arthur inclined his head. As you command. And to Dorne, Rhaegar added. To Oberyn. He will listen more than Doran will. He hears the drums of war in every wind. You would call the viper to the dance, Arthur said softly. Then truly we are at the brink. We have been at it for years, Rhaegar said. We simply refuse to look down. He rose, went to the narrow window. Beyond, clouds massed on the horizon, heavy and gray. Somewhere far off, thunder muttered. Storms are coming, Arthur observed. Yes, Rhaegar said, from every quarter. When the first raven from King's Landing arrived at Winterfell with news of Tywin Lannister's death, Ned Stark had thought, grimly, that the South had finally turned in upon itself. Brandon had laughed. It's what the old bastard deserved, he said, tossing the skinned apple core to the hounds. He held the king's balls in one hand and the realm's purse in the other for 20 years. Did he think no one would count his fingers? Ned frowned. No man deserves to burn. Plenty do, Brandon said, careless. But that's not why the dragon did it. Aerys doesn't care for justice, only for fear. He wants the lords trembling in their beds. He'll get his wish, too. Imagine Lord Hoster, fat as a roast goose, thinking about turning on the king and ending up like the lion. He mimed a shudder, then grinned. Gods, I wish I'd seen the look on Cersei's face. Ned glanced toward the yard, where Lyanna was running her horse along the inner wall, hair flying, her laughter carried up by the wind. It means something, he said. The hand burned without trial. It means the king is not just sick-headed. He's willing to tear the realm apart with his own hands. Not our realm, Brandon said. Let the South rot. We have our own worries. Winter, for one. Father wants the stores doubled. If we get 3 bad years. The second raven came months later, and there were no jokes then. Brandon did not laugh. He did not speak at all. The parchment trembled in Lord Ricard's fingers as he read. His face did not change, but the knuckles that gripped the scroll went white. Aerys has summoned you to King's Landing, he said finally, voice flat. And Brandon, to answer for threats against the crown. Threats? Brandon demanded. What threats? I haven't. Lyanna looked sick. You rode south, she said. When you heard about Rhaegar and me, you said you'd make him answer. Brandon, what did you say? I said I'd have his head, Brandon snapped. And any man would. Learning his little sister had been taken. If a prince steals a wolf's pup, he should expect the pack to bare its teeth. They call that treason now, Ricard said. Words spoken in anger, without thought of who hears. The king says you declared your blade for the prince's throat in the heart of the city, and he calls that plotting regicide. Ned felt as if the hall had grown smaller, the stone walls edging closer. He means to make an example, he said quietly. Tywin's death wasn't enough. Now he seeks noble blood from every corner. I'll go, Brandon said hotly. He wants answers. I'll give them. I'll tell him his son stole my betrothed like a common brigand, and if he has any honor left, he'll... You will go, Ricard cut in, but you will not speak of honor to the Mad King. You will say only what you must. You will bend your knee and wait for the chance to bring your sister home." Lyanna bristled. "I'm not some prize pig to be hauled back to market," she said. "I went with rigor of my own will. The rest," Brandon rounded on her. "You went because you're stubborn as a mule and twice as stupid," he snapped. "You think he loves you? You're a piece on his board, little sister. A wolf girl he can set where he likes to see the Lords move. He's as bad as his bloody father." "Enough," Ricard said. The word hung heavy. Lyanna's mouth pressed into a thin line. Brandon glared at the fire. Ned's gut twisted. He had always been the quiet one, the watcher on the edge of quarrels, trying to see the road ahead. All he saw now was fog. "I will go to King's Landing with you," Ricard said. "The king commands one Stark. He shall have two. I will see his face when he calls my son a traitor for words spoken in a father's fury." "And I?" Ned asked. "You will go to the Vale," his father said. "To Lord Arryn. I am too proud to beg, and Brandon too hot-headed. You have always had the sense the gods forgot to give your brother. You will tell Jon Arryn what has happened. You will ask him to remember whose sons you and Robert are." "Hostages," Ned said softly. "The king wants us as hostages." "He wants our obedience," Ricard said. "He will have words instead. If he is wise, he will accept them. If he is not, he did not finish. He did not need to." Ned thought of Tywin's pyre, of wildfire described in trembling ink by some horrified southern lord. He thought of his father and brother riding south into that lion's den, with nothing but their names for armor. "I don't like leaving you," Ned said. "It is because you do not like it that you must," Ricard replied. A faint smile touched his mouth. "The wolf that stays in the den when danger comes is no use at all. Go to the Vale. Speak to Jon Arryn. If the worst happens, you must be ready to act." "To rebel, you mean?" Ned said, the words strange on his tongue. "To protect the North," Ricard said. "From dragons, from lions, from whatever madness the South births next. If that means war, so be it. If the king burns us, let him choke on our smoke." Brandon's hand came down on Ned's shoulder hard enough to bruise. "Don't fret so, little brother," he said. "We'll ride to King's Landing, we'll roar a bit, the king will bluster, and then we'll all drink together. I'll bring Lyanna back by the ear, and we'll laugh about this when we're old." Lyanna snorted. "You'll never be old," she said. "You'll fall off a wall drunk at 30. Brandon grinned. "If I do, I hope it's the Red Keeps. I've always wondered what it feels like to fly." Later, when the ravens came fluttering black and frantic against the moonlit windows of the Aery, Ned would remember those words and taste bile. Brandon did not fly. He burned, but that was still to come. The world still turned. The snow still fell and melted, and the ravens still flew south with their warnings. In King's Landing, beneath the Red Keep, in humid tunnels that stank of old stone and something sharper, stranger pyromancers moved like ghosts among casks of wildfire. Above, in the throne room, a king with smoke-stained nails dreamed of 1,000 green suns blooming. In Casterly Rock, Cersei stood alone on a balcony that jutted out over the roaring sea, her hair whipping in the wind, and imagined the day when dragons screamed as they fell. In Dragonstone's cold halls, Rhaegar tuned his harp with trembling hands and wondered whether any song he might play could be heard over the drum. Out of approaching war. And in the Vale, as snowflakes skirled around the Aerys high towers, Ned Stark watched Jon Arryn read the king's latest command, the demand that Ned himself and Robert Baratheon be sent to King's Landing to answer for Brandon's treason, and knew the world had finally broken. Jon Arryn's hands shook as he set the parchment down. He was an old man, but he had never seemed so before. Now his shoulders sagged under invisible weight. "He burned them," Robert said. His voice was hoarse. "He burned your father and your brother alive. Gods." He paced, fists clenching and opening. "I should have been there. I'd have torn his damned, thrown down around his ears." "You would have died," Ned said quietly. Robert rounded on him. "Better that than this." His blue eyes were bloodshot, wild. My father, your father, they served the Targaryens for generations. My house owes its lordship to them, and he burns them like kindling, Jon Arryn said. His voice was steady, though his hands were not. Brandon with a noose around his neck, strangling himself trying to reach his father. Lord Rickard roasted in his armor like a joint of meat. That is what the Raven says. Ned swallowed. The words themselves were horror enough. His mind supplied the rest. My banner has flown from the Aery in Targaryen colors since Aegon's time, Jon Arryn went on. I knelt to Aerys' father, and his before him. I watched him grow from a charming boy to this. I forgave much for the sake of peace. Duskendale, the tortures, the flames. He looked from Ned to Robert. But this I cannot forgive, not and call myself a man. The king commands that you deliver us to him, Ned said. He calls us traitors if you refuse. He means to hold you as hostages, Jon Arryn said. And worse, perhaps, the Mad King grows more erratic. He sees treason everywhere. If I send you to your deaths. I might as well cut your throats myself. Robert slammed his fist into the stone wall. Then don't send us. Raise your banners instead. Damn him to the 7 hells. I'll have his head for Brandon's, for your father's, for mine if I must. You would call my banners? Jon Arryn asked, eyes on Ned. Robert opened his mouth. Ned spoke first. You must, he said. The words surprised him by their certainty. If you yield us, you show the realm that any lord may be burned on a whim, that oaths only go one way. There will be no more order, only fear. The North will not submit, nor, I think, will the Stormlands, but alone we will be crushed, together. He thought of the lords he had known in his father's hall, proud men with long memories. Together we may yet break the dragon's claws. Jon Arryn closed his eyes briefly, as if weighing something heavy. When he opened them, they were clear. Then I will, he said. I took you both as wards when you were boys. I taught you the names of the kings in your histories. I promised your fathers I would make men of you. I will not send you to die for a madman's whim. I will call my banners and hope the gods forgive me. Robert's grin flashed, sudden and savage. They'll sing of this, you know, the rebellion of the Vale and the North and the Stormlands. We'll make the lioness and the fish and the hot Dornish too jealous to stay away. His expression darkened. I'll make Rhaegar pay. I swear it on my father's grave. I'll split his breastplate and bash his chest in and if he's not the only one who must answer? Jon Arryn asked quietly. If the realm fractures as Lord Tywin always feared, the West is already restless. The Reach will be torn between its duty to the crown and its greed. Dorne has long memories and deep grudges. Once we shout, Robert, we cannot make the noise stop. Then we shout until the dragon is dead, Robert said. And after, we drink. Ned looked from one to the other and saw, with a clarity that chilled him, the shape of the conflict forming. It was not a clean line, not a simple clash of right and wrong. It was a splintered mirror, each shard reflecting a different horror. Tywin Lannister's corpse still smoldered in the Red Keep stones. Rickard and Brandon Stark's ashes lay scattered on southern winds. And here, in the Vale, 3 men decided to set the realm itself alight. The rebellion that followed did not run along tidy borders. In the west, Lord Humphrey Swyft raised the king's banner above his castle and sent whining letters to King's Landing, eager to prove his loyalty. Half a dozen proud houses spat on his summons. The Craighalls and Marbrands held their strength, waiting. The Leffords and Greenfields muttered that the crown had no right to name some soft-bellied lickspittle their warden. In the hills, bands of men in battered armor gathered under makeshift lion flags, refusing to name any lord but Lannister. At Casterly Rock, Cersei received messenger after messenger. One with a tremulous pledge to the king, sealed in wax that smelled of fear. Another with a blunt statement that our swords are sworn to the rock, not to some half-wit in King's Landing. Each she read, each she weighed. Kevin counseled caution. "We must not act until we know where the storm will break," he said. "It has already broken," Cersei replied. She watched from the battlements as a small host rode out, banners snapping. Her cousin Tywin Lannister led them, his gold beard bristling. He had sworn to ride for the Riverlands, to see which way the war went, to offer his sword to those who struck first against the crown. "If we cannot lead," Cersei said, "we can at least be seen on the winning side." "That is not the same as loyalty," Kevin warned. "No," Cersei said, "it is better. Loyalty gets you burned. Being on the winning side gets you crowns." In the Reach, Lord Mace Tyrell donned armor polished so bright he could see his own smug grin in it. Under his mother's cool gaze, he pledged Highgarden's swords to the crown. Yet not all his vassals followed. House Florent muttered of old blood and older rights. They sent secret envoys north, promising grain if the rebels proved worthy. House Tarly sharpened its steel and marched for the king. Randall Tarly was no friend of chaos, but his son Sam prayed at night for any outcome that would keep him from war. In Dorne, Prince Doran Martell sat in his tower at Sunspear, gout swelling his joints, and read letters from his sister the Queen, from his brother the Red Viper, from half a dozen lords and ladies who owed loyalty to his blood. Elia wrote of her children, of Kingsguard who stood like statues, of a husband with music in his hands and storms in his eyes. Oberyn wrote of fire and blood and the chance at last to pay off old scores. Doran folded each letter, placed it carefully in its box, and delayed. "We will not rush into this," he told his captains. "We play a long game. The realm burns," Oberyn answered when he rode in, dust-streaked and smiling, to throw his mail on the prince's table. "You cannot sit and sip wine while dragons and wolves rip at each other's throats. Our sister is in the pit with them. Will you watch and see which beast tears her first?" "I will watch and see which beast survives," Doran said. "And then we will strike where it hurts." In all the 7 kingdoms, men sharpened swords, kissed their wives, prayed to whatever gods would listen. Old grudges flared. Ancient wrongs rose from the grave. It was not one war that began, but a dozen, tangled and overlapping. And at the heart of it all, in the red keep that still stank of wildfire, Aerys Targaryen sat atop a throne of knives and smiled as the world moved against him. "Let them come," he whispered, stroking the metal arm of his chair. "Lions and stags and wolves and falcons and fish, let them all march. When they reach my walls, I will show them what it is to face a dragon." Beneath the city, wildfire waited in its casks, patient as rot. Years later, the singers would struggle to tell the tale of that war. They liked simple lines, clear heroes, shining villains. But there was nothing simple about what followed. Battles flared and died like sparks in a storm, too numerous to count. Lords changed sides when it suited them. Brothers found themselves facing brothers across bloody fields. Somewhere in the chaos, a man who had once been the realm's unshakable rock lay in an unmarked grave of ash, and his absence was a hole that swallowed every attempt at order. At the Trident, when at last the main hosts clashed, it was not merely Robert Baratheon and Rhaegar Targaryen who faced each other across the rushing green-blue water. Banners of every color lined the banks. Arryn falcons, Stark direwolves, Tully trout, Baratheon stags, and there, among them, a scattering of crimson and gold. Tywin Lannister had led his host north at last, drawn by tales of Robert's victories in the south, by the burning of the Kingswood, by whispers that the dragon's wings were tattered. He had found the rebel army hungry for his arrival. "Too late," some muttered. "The lion only comes when the feast is half eaten." Others welcomed any new swords. On the other side, smaller hosts held the king's banner. Tyrell Roses, Tarly huntsmen, the last loyal Crownland lords who had not yet been burned or cowed. Between them, the trident ran swift, as if eager to wash all colors down to the sea. Rhaegar rode along his line, armor black as night save for the rubies that studded his breastplate, blazing red in the sun. He looked thinner than when Ned had last seen him, more shadow than man, but his gaze was clear. "Today decides the realm," he told the men nearest him. "Not just who sits the Iron Throne, but whether there will be an Iron Throne at all. If we fail, there will be no one strong enough to hold the kingdoms together. They will tear themselves to pieces for a generation." Some believed him. Others only heard a prince trying to save his crown and his children. Across the river, Robert hefted his warhammer and laughed. "There he is!" he roared when he saw the prince's black armor. "The man who stole my betrothed and burned my friend's fathers. I'll smash his pretty rubies into the riverbed." His men cheered because that was simpler to grasp. When the battle was joined, it was as brutal and confused as any that had come before. The trident ran red. Men who had never seen the sea drowned in water churned with blood and mud and armor. The songs would later play up the single combat. Prince against rebel, hammer against sword, river swirling around them. There was truth in that. They met, they clashed, their blades singing. Rhaegar's rubies scattered into the water when Robert's hammer bit deep. The prince fell, the river took him. The rubies flashed like drops of blood on the current. But the battle did not end there. News of Rhaegar's death ran along the royalist lines like fire. Some faltered, some fought on in blind rage. Others broke and ran. Among them, more than a few raised new banners before their blood had dried, swearing they had always meant to bend the knee to the victor. When the trident was done, the rebels held the field. Robert, spattered with gore, stood atop a mound of bodies and raised his hammer high, roaring his defiance at a sky that had grown gray with smoke. Ned found him there, chest heaving. "Is it done?" Ned asked. Robert spat blood. "Not while Aerys lives," he said. "Not while my Lioness' fate is unknown. I won the battle, Ned. Now we win the war. This war has more than one front," Ned said. "The West, the Reach, Dorne." "Let them come," Robert said, echoing the Mad King without knowing it. "We'll meet them all." But he did not know then how thin his own victory was. He did not know that in King's Landing, the king had already abandoned any pretense of rule and had retreated into his green dreams entirely. That Varys walked shadows with a face full of worry. That Jaime Lannister stood at the foot of the Iron Throne and weighed his vows against his soul. He did not know that the Lion's absence these last years had hollowed out the center of power, leaving only jagged edges. When word reached King's Landing that Rhaegar had fallen, Aerys locked himself in the throne room with Rossart and the pyromancers. The court waited in frozen dread. Elia clutched her children in the nursery, listening to distant footsteps and muffled shouts. Varys glided from one dark corner to another, whispering into ears that might still listen. Jaime stood his watch. He had seen so much by now: burnings, flayings, men and women hurled from the castle walls for imagined offenses, that he thought nothing could shock him. He was wrong. Aerys paced before the throne like a caged animal, nails leaving bloody crescents in his palms where he clenched his fists. His crown had slipped askew. His hair hung in greasy tangles. "They come," he hissed. "The usurpers, the traitors. They think us weak with Rhaegar fallen. They think the dragon toothless. Fools. I will show them fire they have never dreamed." "Your Grace," Rossart murmured. "The caches are in place. Under the September, under the gates, beneath the flea bottom as you commanded. A spark in the right place, and the whole city will blossom," Aerys breathed. His eyes shone. "Yes, let them march into my city. Let them taste my hospitality. When they fill the streets, when they push against my walls, we will light the fuse. We will turn King's Landing into a pyre they will see from Old Town to the Wall. We will burn them all. Men, women, children, traitors, innocents. There are no innocents when treason walks. Burn them all. Burn them in my name." Jaime felt something cold settle in his gut. In all the horrors he had watched, there had always been, somewhere, a line. It might shift, it might blur, but he believed some line remained. Now he saw that there was none. There never had been, not in this man's mind. "Your Grace," he said. Aerys turned on him so swiftly his crown slipped and clattered on the stone floor. "You speak without leave, boy?" Jaime forced himself to meet those feverish eyes. The wildfire stores are volatile, he said carefully. If the city burns... He thought of the boy prince and the tiny princess, of Elia's one face. He thought of thousands of small folk who had no say in any of this. Your grandchildren, your grace, your blood, they are in the city. They are dragon spawn, Aerys snarled. They will not fear fire. If they die, it is in the flames' embrace. A better fate than living in a world ruled by usurpers. Your people, Jaime said. My people have betrayed me, Aerys screamed. Spittle flew from his lips. They cheered for Rhaegar when he should have been cheering for me. They mutter that the lion was a better hand. They slip away to join the rebels. Let them burn. Let them all burn. And then we will rise anew from the ashes. Fire purifies. Fire cleanses. Fire is my right. Rossert's eyes gleamed with fervor. We are ready, your grace. Say the word and I will go. A single torch in the right tunnel. He trailed off. Jaime realized, with a clarity as sharp as any blade, that this man held more power over the city's fate than any lord or knight. One flick of his wrist, and tens of thousands would die screaming. No vow was worth that. His hand went to his sword of its own accord. Aerys saw the movement. For a heartbeat, confusion crossed his face. What are you doing? He demanded. What, indeed? Jaime thought, breaking every oath I ever swore. He drew. The sound of steel rasping from leather was louder than any shout. Rossart recoiled, eyes wide. Sir Jaime, Aerys whispered, you would draw steel on your king? I am sworn to protect the people, Jaime said. His voice sounded distant in his own ears. Your grace, from my enemies, not from me, Aerys shrieked. There was no time for more talk. Rossart lunged for the door, skirts flapping. Jaime moved without thought, crossing the space in a few long strides. His sword went in under the ribs. The pyromancer's mouth opened in a small, shocked O, and a thin line of blood dribbled from the corner. Jaime yanked the blade free. Rossart crumpled, green-stained fingers twitching once, then lying still. The king screamed, Traitor! Kingslayer! Guards! Guards! There were none near enough. Jaime had chosen his moment well, if not consciously. The court huddled in the outer halls. The gold cloaks were busy at the gates, preparing for siege. The other Kingsguard had scattered to their posts. Here, in this high, echoing chamber, there were only 3 living men. A mad king, his sworn shield, and a dying alchemist. Jaime turned back. Aerys stared at him with wild hatred. I am your king, he hissed. You cannot. You will not. Put down that sword, boy. Put it down and I may forgive. Jaime stepped forward and drove the sword through his chest. It was easier than he had imagined it would be. The armor beneath the robes was thin, ceremonial. The blade slid between ribs and into flesh. Hot blood spilled over Jaime's hands, bright and shocking. Aerys' scream choked off. His fingers scrabbled at Jaime's breastplate, weak as a child's. For a moment, their faces were inches apart. Jaime saw not a dragon, not a king, but a frail, frightened old man who could not understand that his time had ended. Then the light in his eyes went out. Jaime jerked the sword free. Aerys slumped sideways, half sliding from the throne. His crown rolled, clinking along the stone, until it came to rest at Jaime's feet. The world held its breath. He had done it. He had killed his king. He had also saved a cit. Or so he thought. Sir Jaime. The voice came from behind him, quiet as the stroke of an axe. Jaime turned, sword still in his hand. Varys the eunuch stood in the doorway, round face pale, eyes wide. What have you done? What I had to, Jaime said. His chest heaved. He meant to burn them all. The wildfire. Yes, Varys said. The wildfire. His gaze flicked to Rossart's body. But he was not the only pyromancer who knew the paths to the casks. There are others. And there are men in this city who will not weep at the thought of it burning if it means denying his enemies their prize. As if summoned by the words, a dull thud shuddered through the castle. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Distantly, someone screamed. "What?" Jaime began. "The rebels have reached the gates," Varys said, "and some of the king's sworn men have decided they would rather burn the city than yield it. They have their own jars, their own torches. You were not the only man to break his vows today, sire." Another thud, this one louder. The floor lurched. From outside, a roar like an angry sea rose, an inhuman howl. Wildfire. Jaime ran. Down the steps, past the king's body, past Rossard's cooling corpse, into the corridors that twisted through the red keep like veins. Smoke stung his eyes. Heat licked at his cloak. He passed panicked courtiers, servants clutching bundles, a septa dragging a sobbing child. None of them knew which way to flee. The city had become a maze of fire and fear. He burst out onto a balcony overlooking the city and saw hell. Green fire bloomed along the riverfront, a dozen flowers of unnatural flame. The first cask must have gone off near the mud gate. The stone there was cracked and spewing fire like liquid. The close-packed wooden houses of the dockside had caught at once. Flea Bottom was a field of green, screams twisting up above it like smoke. Further in, at the base of Rhaenys' hill, another explosion tore through a row of houses. The September of Baelor still stood, but the square before it was a churning sea of flame. People ran in every direction, some already ablaze, others crushed underfoot. The city walls held. For now, beyond them, Jaime saw banners on the hills, stags and wolves and trout and falcons. The rebel host had arrived to claim its prize, only to find it going up in fire before their eyes. The collapse of the monarchy was not a clean decapitation. It was a slow, screaming flay. Jaime stumbled back from the balcony. "The city," he whispered. "I tried." "Yes," Varys said. He had followed silently. "You did. Perhaps without you it would be worse. Perhaps the September would have blown by now, the castles with it. As it is..." He lifted delicate shoulders. "Fire, once lit, is hard to tame." "Elia," Jaime said. "The children." "I must." "Already gone," Varys said. Jaime's look, he spread his hands. "I am not wholly without mercy, sire. I saw what the king meant to do days ago. I began preparations. Secret tunnels have more uses than one. The princess and her children are on a ship bound for Dorne even now. God's willing. With them went some few who were loyal to the prince rather than the crown." Jaime sagged with relief. Then, at least, another explosion cut him off. The castle shook. Stone cracked. Somewhere nearby, a wall gave way with a sound like thunder. "And us?" he asked grimly. "We survive," Varys said. "If we can." The Red Keep did not fall that day. Stone held better than wood. The wildfire had been placed beneath the city streets, the commoners' houses, the markets and docks, places where the greatest crush of bodies would be. The Mad King had wanted spectacle, not the loss of his own seat. But wildfire had its own ideas. Some casks had been set badly, some fell short of their intended targets. Pockets of flame broke out in strange places. Smoke filled the sky. For days, the city burned. For weeks after, it stank of char and death. The rebels entered not a conqueror's prize, but a ruin. Ned rode through the shattered mud gate, his horse shying at the sight of blackened corpses piled along the road. Ash drifted in the air like gray snow. The houses nearest the walls were charred shells. Even here, away from the worst of the blasts, the heat had been enough to split stone. "This is not victory," he said. Robert, riding at his side, had lost his grin. He looked older, lines carved deep around his mouth. "It's what's left," he said. "We'll rebuild." "We," Jon Arryn murmured behind them. "If there is a we when all this is counted." They rode up Aegon's high hill in near silence, the clop of hooves loud in empty streets. Here, the fire had done less damage. The Red Keep loomed, scorched in places but standing. The gates were open. No guards challenged them. Inside, they found the throne room stinking of smoke and blood. Aerys's body still lay beside the throne, half covered with a cloak, a crown lying dented near his outflung hand. Nearby, a slim older man in green robes lay in a dark pool that had dried sticky, and in front of the Iron Throne, upon its steps, sat Jaime Lannister in his white cloak, sword across his knees. He rose when they entered slowly, as if he had been sitting there a long time. Robert saw him first, his face twisted. "You," he said, "the lion cub, have you come to claim your father's chair?" Jaime's mouth twitched. "I've been keeping it warm," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Your army took its time." Robert's hand tightened on his hammer. "You've a bold tongue for a man whose queen roasted my friends," he said. "Why are you not at her side, defending her like a good little lapdog?" "The queen is gone," Jaime said. "So are the prince's children. Varys spirited them away, perhaps to Dorne, perhaps to Essos. You'll have to hunt your trophies elsewhere. Robert Baratheon." Robert's jaw clenched. "Lannister tricks." "No," Jon Arryn said quietly. He was looking at the bodies. "Look at them, Robert." Aerys fell by Lannister steel. Ned's gaze had already found the blood drying on Jaime's armor, the dark stains on the king's robes, the angle of the sword cut. He glanced at Rossart. The pyromancer's green-stained hands lay splayed. "You killed him," Ned said. "Yes," Jaime said. "Why?" Jon Arryn asked. "Because he meant to burn the city," Jaime said. "All of it." He had the wildfire laid beneath the streets. He was about to send the pyromancers to light it. His mouth twisted. "I killed Rossart, then I killed him. I thought that would be enough." He gestured vaguely toward the window slit. Smoke drifted outside still, though less than before. "It wasn't," he finished. Robert snorted. "So you saved us from his madness by giving us this instead." He gestured at the charred emptiness beyond the doors. Jaime shrugged, a weary lift of one shoulder. "You're welcome." Ned felt something harden inside him. He had seen too much in the last few months to take the world in simple shapes, but the sight of the king's killer sitting so casually on his throne clawed at some deep sense of order. Kings weren't meant to be killed by their sworn shields. Vows meant something or they meant nothing. "It was still your oath," he said. "You swore to protect him." "And I did," Jaime said. "From himself. From becoming the worst version of what he already was. I failed. I came late. But I did what I could." Ned stepped closer. He smelled smoke and something sour on the man, as if the fire had baked all scent from him but that. "You will answer for it," he said. "If not to us, then to the gods." "Oh, I have no doubt," Jaime said lightly. "The gods and I will have a great deal to discuss when they finally take notice of me." Robert huffed. "Enough. We've a realm to settle, Stark. Not time to moralize over oaths. The dragon's dead. His whelps have flown. The throne is empty." He looked at it, at the jagged black mass of melted swords. "And I mean to sit it." "Do you?" Jon Arryn asked. "And who will kneel?" "The West is in chaos. The Reach has lost much but will not forget its loyalty to the old gods or the new kings. Dorne will not forgive you for any slight against Elia or her children. The North and Vale and Stormlands may stand together now, but with what glue? Your hammer." "My blood," Robert said. "I have Targaryen blood in me. More than that, I have victories. They'll follow a man who wins." "For now," Jon Arryn said. "But the old order is gone. Tywin held the lords with gold and fear. Aerys held them with fire and the memory of dragons. You offer what? Ale and songs. A better world," Robert said. "One where kings don't burn their hands or their lords. One where men can sleep without wondering if they'll wake in flame." Ned listened, tired to his bones. The hall felt heavy with ghosts. Tywin's, Aerys's, Brandon's, Ricard's. Rhaegar's somewhere in the river. "It may be," Jon Arryn said slowly, "that one king on one throne is no longer what this realm can bear." Robert blinked. "What are you saying?" "That the 7 kingdoms were 7 once," Jon said. "Conquered by fire and fear. The fire is gone. The fear is broken. What holds them now? Habit, Robert growled. And swords. We have both. For a while, Jon Arryn said. But look around you. The city has burned. The small folk curse both dragon and stag. The west sneers at us. The reach hesitates. Dorne will hate whoever sits that chair if he is not of their blood. If we force them all to bend the knee, we may win a few more battles. We may even hold the throne for a generation. But at the cost of endless uprisings, rebellions, assassinations. How many more cities do you want to see burn, Robert? Robert looked at the throne as if it had betrayed him. So what then? He said roughly. We walk away, give the dragon his ashes, and go back to our holes. Perhaps holes are safer than thrones, Ned said quietly. Robert swung toward him. You too. I have seen what your throne costs, Ned said, gesturing at the corpses. If you sit it, you will spend the rest of your life fighting men who believe you stole something that was never theirs to give. The North is tired of Southern crowns. Robert, my father died for one. My brother. How many more Starks must fall for a chair of swords? Robert's face twisted. You'd see the North declare a king of its own? March home and leave the rest of us to choke on dragon bones. I'd see the North safe, Ned said. Whatever that takes. If that means ruling itself, so be it. And the Vale, Jon Arryn murmured. We have long loved our independence. Perhaps it is time we remembered it. Robert barked a humorless laugh. So that's it then. We trade one king for 7. The realm splinters. Every petty lord calls himself your grace. We fought all these battles for nothing. That is not nothing, Ned said, thinking of Brandon's laughter, of his father's steady hand gone cold. It is different. Not better, perhaps, but different. Jaime, still leaning on his sword, watched them with bright, almost amused eyes. You might try something novel, he suggested. Talk to the other lords. Ask what they want. Perhaps some would accept you as Lord Protector instead of King. Perhaps some would pay you to stay away. He shrugged. The world has changed. Pretending otherwise will not make it what it was. Robert rubbed a hand over his beard. Gods, but I hate you, Lannister, he said. You sit on my throne, you mock my crown, and somehow you talk sense. I've had a shocking week, Jaime said. Perhaps it knocked some into me. In the end, there was no single moment when the realm chose to break. It did so by inches. The North went home, banners high, Ned Stark riding at their head. They named him king in the North in the ancient way, on a hill overlooking the Barrowfields, swords rising as men shouted his name. He accepted with a heavy heart, thinking of the winters to come, of the wall, of things older and colder than kings. The Vale closed its passes. Jon Arryn styled himself Lord of the Eyrie and Guardian of the East. He did not take a crown, but he did not send one either. Dorne declared Elaya's son their prince and spoke no oath to any man in King's Landing or Winterfell. Their ships slipped in and out of harbor with wary discretion, trading where they willed. In the west, Cersei Lannister watched the chaos and smiled. They did offer the crown to Robert in the end, or something that looked like it. King of the Stormlands and the Trident, some suggested, for the lands he had truly won. He took it with a shrug and little satisfaction, more warlord than king, holding the River Lords with promises and the Storm Lords with sheer force of will. The Reach bowed to no one but its own liege. Mace Tyrell took to styling himself High King of the Mandor in the privacy of his halls, though he never dared proclaim it openly beyond his gardens. King's Landing remained a city of ghosts and scars. The Iron Throne still stood, but no man sat it for long. Councils rose and fell, each more short-lived than the last, as factions vied for whatever scraps of authority remained. Some whispered that the throne was cursed, that anyone who claimed it would die as Aerys had. Others simply saw that there was little left in that blackened hall but memories. Jaime Lannister left the city by a postern gate one foggy dawn, his white cloak gray with soot. He rode west without fanfare, without escort, without a clear sense of what waited him. Kingslayer, they would call him from that day forward, spitting the word like rot. They would not speak of the city that still stank of burned flesh, of the countless lives that might have been lost had he acted later, or not at all. Cersei met him at the gates of Casterly Rock. They stood facing each other in the courtyard. The seas roar a constant undercurrent. "You're late," she said. "I was busy killing kings," he said. "You know how it is." She smiled, but there was little humor in it. "The world has no more use for kings, it seems." "Then what does it have use for?" he asked. "Lions," she said. "Wolves, stags, men and women who will carve out what they can from the ruins." Her gaze slid past him toward the east. "The dragon's gone, for now, but the world hates a vacuum. Something will rise." Jaime thought of Rhaegar's prophecies, of talk of ice and fire. He thought of the wall, of rumors of dead things moving in the snow. He thought of a city scarred by unnatural flame. "Perhaps," he said, "perhaps not." He looked at his sister, at the rock, at the gray, churning sea. The world had cracked, and no one had been ready. The careful balance Tywin had kept had fallen with him. Aerys' madness had lit the match. The rest had been pride and fear and prophecy. In the north, Ned Stark stood atop the walls of Winterfell and watched the first true snows of the coming winter fall, thick and silent. The ravens brought news of storms in the south, of petty wars and shifting alliances, of a realm in pieces. He held a swaddled child in his arms, his sister's last gift. The boy's dark eyes regarded him solemnly. "Your blood is half dragon," Ned murmured. "In another world, you'd be a prince, perhaps a king. In this one," he looked at the falling snow, "in this one, you will be my son. You will learn of winter and wolves and walls. The rest we will face when it comes." He named the boy Jon, for the man who had first raised banners against a mad king and by doing so had helped tear the realm apart. Far to the south, in a city of burned stone and bitter memory, small folk rebuilt their homes with whatever they could find. They told stories at night of green fire that had fallen from the sky, of dragons and lions and stags that had fought over their heads and left them with nothing. They did not care who had killed whom. They cared only for bread and safety. The Iron Throne sat in its empty hall, cold and sharp, waiting. The 7 kingdoms were 7 once more and less. No single banner flew above them all. Alliances shifted like sand. Old hatreds smoldered. No one knew what shape the future would take. The only certainty was that whatever came next would be built atop ruins, and that the ghosts of burned men, lion, dragon, wolf alike, would watch, silent and accusing, as new wars were born from the ashes of the old.